Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host Andrew, and joining me tonight is my buddy Joe. Joe, how are you doing tonight?
Hanging in there, Andrew. It's weird to be talking about opening day here in about a week. We didn't expect to see that happen, so um, we'll see how it goes, but can't complain too much. How about you?
I'm all right. It's this is a really weird week because opening day is April 7th and we had snow squalls today. Gotta love March where literally anything and everything can and will happen. And being that this is South Central Pennsylvania, the expectation of minimum 4 seasons in 7 days is not out of the ordinary. Sometimes more than one season in a single day.
Yeah, we're I think we're at third or fourth winter by this point.
At least maybe fifth or sixth. I've honestly lost track. There's been more snow in March than we've had in more years than I can remember. Which, hey, I'm okay with it. My birthday's in March, and we had snow the Saturday before my birthday, so it's a nice little present for me. And I didn't have to work, so it didn't bother me one bit if I'm stuck at home. So that worked out pretty well. Joe, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm going back to a regular. I'm going back to Jack and Coke.
All right.
Staying off the Mountain Dew tonight. To be maybe not as jacked today, I guess.
I gotcha. For my birthday, one of my wife's awesome friends, Annie, she lives up near Harrisburg, and there's a really awesome brewery up there that we went to one time with her called Evergreen Brewing. And she grabbed me. She knows I like sour, so she grabbed me a pack of the Sorbetto number 32. It's a sour ale with kiwi, raspberry, and watermelon. It's a nice tart, pretty solid balance of flavors all the way around. They did the thing I'm most impressed by is they made sure that the watermelon didn't overrun all the other flavors. Which, as you know, having tasted, how much watermelon bubble gum playing little league, watermelon usually overruns everything. No complaints from me there. One note before we get started tonight. For our listeners in the Pennsylvania area that dealt with all those snow squalls today, there was a pretty horrific car accident, huge chain car reaction. I think 50, 60 some cars up on Route 81 in Schuylkill County. Our thoughts and prayers are with the folks that got sent to the hospital and everyone else. I think they've already confirmed at least 3 dead and at least 24 have been sent to area hospitals, including all the way down here in Lancaster to LGH. They got 4 traumas late in the afternoon from it because the hospitals up there are overrun right now. Our thoughts and prayers to the people that were involved in the accident as well as their families as well. Hoping everybody has a full recovery. All right. So, Joe, before we jump into spring training, we mentioned it when we were on with Jim last week. Some finalized rules for this upcoming season. The first one that I think is an absolutely huge rule change 28-man rosters until May 1st. Very, very, very smart. We're going to be burning through extra pitchers because the players are probably not going to be the pitchers won't be completely stretched out for long outings initially in the first month of the season. We saw what happened in the shortened 2020 season when you try to rush pitchers to full length before they're fully stretched out, and you have a lot of injuries. So we don't want to see that again. So that's one rule change I'm very happy with. One rule I am absolutely disgusted with: the ghost runner rule is back in extra innings. It will only be for this year, and then it is hopefully gone forever, never to be seen again. I hate that rule with a passion. I hated it in 2022, even when the Braves did well in the playoffs. Screw it. Burn it down. I hate it. And then this rule actually makes just a ton of sense. The Ohtani rule: the pitcher can remain as a DH after he's pulled from the mound. To be honest, Joe, one thing I've never really understood is why if the American League is so gung ho about their DH, why did they make so many rules to make it so easy to lose your DH? It never made sense to me.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know why they would make it so difficult to keep the DH in the lineup. I think this is a nice way to let the pitchers who can actually rake stay in the game. Um, you know, Otani comes to mind, obviously, but Jacob Degrom. If this rule, if they had the DH when Zambrano was pitching, he would have been hitting every game instead of hanging out in the clubhouse and hitting water coolers. So, I like the rule a lot. I think that's helpful. The 28 man roster, I just don't know how big a deal we can make of this. This is going to be huge because there's going to be a ton of guys, like you said, who are not fully stretched out. Um, DeGrom's made of glass, so uh, he had 30 pitches in his first outing. I don't remember how many he threw yesterday, but it wasn't much more than that. Um, they had Scherzer in there for 6 innings, I think, yesterday, and he threw 73 last week. So some of these guys are pretty loose or just gung ho, and some of these guys are not so loose. And there's going to be some issues, I think. So I mean, the fact that there's the universal DH is going to help some of those National League pitchers who normally would have to hit. But yeah, the 28 man is going to be helpful. The Ohtani rule is going to be good, I think. The ghost runner rule is stupid. Um, guys like Kimbrel and guys like Mariano Rivera in his day would have not been the pitchers they were if they had to come in with a runner on already. And I saw it with Kimbrel last year with the Cubs. There's games where he starts with a runner on, and you're like, well, he's already in the stretch. This isn't good. Kimbrel is a lot of optics and a lot of the wind up and the goofy shit he does. I mean, that's part of his shtick. And when you're not able to do that right away in an extra inning game, I mean, that just seems kind of stupid.
To be fair, he was doing that goofy shit back in Atlanta way back in the day too. So that's not completely outside of the ordinary for Mr. Kimbrel. But yeah, I completely agree with you. And how it's just so it just changes everything. It's like I said on Jim's show last week. It literally takes away home field advantage from the home team and gives it to the visiting team because it's so easy to score a run from second when you have a guy starting there with no outs. So,
yeah, I mean, the one caveat, and you brought this up last week too, is that nobody can bunt in the majors anymore. So, I mean, this is clearly a situation where you put that ghost runner on second with nobody out. That's your dream as an offensive line. Just go, okay, I'm going to bunt him to third and let somebody hit a long fly ball to center, and the guy wins the game. So, like, the fact that they don't coach bunting as well as they used to, it's kind of, shooting them in the foot a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I wish, I really wish that we would see a bunting contest as part of the home run derby, in that same time period during the All-Star game, do a whole set of skills competitions, have an infield competition, have the bunt competition, have the home run derby as like the crown jewel of them all at the very end before the All-Star game itself. There's so much more MLB could do. Like, hell, have guys race in the outfield.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up on, the NHL skills competition where they were doing the target stuff, doing, skating drills with control, puck control and, hardest shot in the, in the league and those kind of things. With the NBA, you've had the slam dunk and the 3-point competition for years. The NFL has their own goofy stuff with the Pro Bowl that nobody watches. Baseball has really missed out on this. And all they do is a lot of times they do that celebrity softball game and they do a futures game. And it's like, well, this is kind of dumb. The only thing you do is a home run derby. Like that covers one part of the sport. I mean, why not do a home run derby, do a bunting contest, hell, you could even do catcher pop time contest. I don't care.
Yeah.
Do something fun. Do a base stealing contest where, you throw Wilson Contreras behind the plate and go ahead, run off.
Make my day.
Yeah. Do stuff like that to make the All-Star game a little more exciting and not just a home run derby. I think I do think we saw that they're going to do a home run derby to end the All-Star game going forward if there's a tie. I think you said that last week.
Yeah, if there's a tie after 9 innings, instead of burning any more pitching arms, it's going to be a home run derby for the win, which I'm okay with that. For a meaningless exhibition game, that's a lot better than, especially now that we no longer decide home field advantage for the World Series, which again, one of the stupidest ideas ever among Bud Selig's long list of really, really stupid fucking ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God that's gone. So yeah, that's yeah. Home, yeah, I don't think we're going to see it more than maybe once a decade or two, but hey,
Yeah.
for that one time, that's going to be more exciting than, considering running out position players to pitch because you ran out of bullpen arms.
Yeah. And the other rule thing we're talking about too, and they're only doing this in the minors, but you and I were just talking about this before we went on. They're gonna move second base a foot closer. I really don't know what that's going to do. But I don't necessarily think it's gonna improve guys who can't steal. If anything, it's gonna make guys like Billy Hamilton make catchers look stupid. Um,
He didn't need any help to do that.
no, but it's gonna make guys who are super fast look even faster than they are. The big thing you have to figure out is what that does to the vicinity rule and all that stuff for double plays, because we've worked on that premise for with the majors for years, where even if you don't technically touch the bag, your foot's in the vicinity and you have the ball in the glove. So I don't know that foot closer is going to make a difference.
Well, and another thing that I just thought of, think about these shortstop and second basemen who have this drilled in exactly the number of steps they need to take whenever that ball is hit to get to that bag. That's going to change that. Baseball's all about muscle memory and repetition.
Mhm.
That's going to be a big change for those guys. For that's something that makes it to the major league level. Personally, I think this is probably going to go the way of stealing first base. But let's see what happens. I don't think it's going to increase stealing dramatically. I think you're right. Marginal guys, it might help them get a couple of 50-50 throws, but guys that are already fast, they're just going to be able to abuse the hell out of it. So
Yeah. The other base rule I think we were talking about was they're going to make, I think, first base bigger or have that breakaway base kind of on, or they're
yeah,
talking about it
they were
at least.
talking about it. I don't know if that ever got approved or not. To be honest, I don't think they need to change the size of the base. I think they need to do, instead of the breakaway bags aren't a bad idea,
Yeah.
but what I think they need to do instead is do the double wide bag that softball has. So the runner, it's literally a large rectangle,
Right.
one half is the regular base. Then on the inside base path side towards the first base dugout, it's the second base, same size, but it's just off to the side to prevent what you see sometimes, the guy covering first base getting his ankle stepped on by accident, or the runner getting stepped on by accident by the guy trying to cover the bag. So that just, to me, that it makes too much sense not to do something like that, and that part of the bag would only be in play during a ground ball, like. If you're
Right.
trying to dive back, you miss the base, and you try and catch the
No.
back end, no,
No.
you're out. That's not part of the base anymore. That's only part during the play itself on a ground.
Right. That would make sense to me if they did something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, seeing that in person, my years in athletic training, it's helpful to have that outside bag for them to hit,
Hmm.
so they don't have to, you know, make the turn in the middle of it if it's getting a little further away from the fielder or whatever.
Exactly.
I think it certainly improves the safety just a bit.
Yeah, and let's be real. Nobody wants to see people get stepped on either on the Achilles or on the ankle. Nobody wants to ever see somebody get hurt because of that.
Yeah.
All right. So before we hop into spring training, there's actually some breaking news that just came out, something you should be undoubtedly excited for. Albert Pujols is coming back to the Cardinals for one more season before he retires. I presumably retires. I'm assuming he's not going to go past this year.
Yeah, he announced this is it. He's just doing a sort of a farewell tour.
Yeah.
I did see something funny about that today, where I think that the manager of the Cardinals is somewhere in his early 30s, and the median age for Yachty, Wainwright, and Pujols is like 40 and a half. So you've got a bunch of senior citizen level guys on the Cardinals. But I mean, it is nice that they're going to have him back. I saw something too where they were talking about how many at bats he needs to get this year if he's going to get 700 based on his averages. I
Yeah.
don't know that I necessarily see that happening, but you never know.
Plus it's not even, this isn't a huge shell out. It's a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. It's probably heavily incentive laden, the kind of deal you always give to the vets. Now that the National League has the DH, it's perfect because he really can't field it that well
No,
anymore.
I mean he has. Let's be, you know, nice about it. But Pujols hasn't been able to field since he left St. Louis the first time.
No,
I mean,
completely agreed.
he was on the way down. So, I think this is a great thing for. You see this a lot with baseball in particular, where they sign these guys for one last year. For the club they started with, and they get to have that whole, you know, final farewell tour and all that stuff. And I think that's cool. Um, you know, does it drastically hurt them one way or the other? Not really. Does it help them? Yeah, it'll help a little. Um, but this is already a loaded Cardinal team, from what we talked about, a month or so ago.
Mhm. Yeah, the Cardinals are definitely going to. It's definitely a little improvement for them. They're not going to expect Pujols to come out and hit 330 and 100. He's not going to do that anymore.
No,
He's years off that. But even if he can hit like 230 to 250, that might be just the boost the Cardinals need in some games where they just fell a little bit short last year. So I like the deal. I've always liked Pujols. I know he destroyed the Cubs year in, year out when he was there the first time, but he's a fun guy to watch. I mean, when he hits the ball, he hits the ball. I mean, the sound of his bat hitting shattering a baseball is something to behold. So,
yeah, and he's always seemed like a stand-up guy. I mean, I got to see a lot of him, like you said. So I don't necessarily hate him. I don't necessarily, you know,
you
I'm
don't love
not
it.
necessarily upset about it, but it's not like they were one piece away or something like that. They were already in pretty good shape. So
Yeah. And then there was one other deal that you actually just sent to us before we went on tonight as well. The Twins, the team that we to this day can't figure out what the hell they're doing, if they're buying, selling, trying to straddle the line, because none of their deals make much sense, to be completely honest. They picked up Chris Archer on was it a 1 year? It's a 1 year deal, 3.5 million with a $10 million option, mutual option for next year. So yeah, the Twins did need pitching depth anyway. So on that hand, it does make sense. Um, Beyond
yeah,
that,
I mean,
whatever.
you're talking about a team who is now, added Sonny Gray and now Chris Archer, so that their pitching is quite improved from the beginning of the offseason.
Hmm.
Um, you
Yeah,
know,
nowhere to go but up.
they got Correa on the strangest deal I've ever. I don't know why he went there, but hey, it works for them. But they got Urshela and some other guys from that Yankee trade. So Sanchez. So they've got some pieces that can do some producing for them, and that it improves things. But I mean, when the over under on the games back for most teams in the AL Central is 15, doesn't really matter.
I mean, there are 3 wild card spots now, so theoretically, the second team might get lucky enough to steal one of those. Although, to be completely honest with you, I kind of doubt it.
Hey, all I can say is this third wild card spot gives the A's a chance to get in on their merits this time. Instead of like backdooring in, like okay, well you were good enough to get to the third wild card. We'll see what happens.
Exactly.
They've been on the cusp of the second wild card for years, so maybe we
Mhm.
should call the playoff expansion the Billy Bean rule.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be backing into anything this year. We'll
No,
talk about that in a little bit, but I would be surprised if they do. All right, so looking around spring training so far, Joe. One thing that I saw, Thor finally made his debut out in Anaheim, and he looked sharp. I was really surprised, especially I was listening to our AOS preview earlier today, just to steal some of Dave's notes and thoughts because the dude knows that division better than I do and better than I ever will. And I, the one thing I mentioned was in Thor's last mini start for the Mets against Atlanta, he wasn't allowed to throw breaking balls. His control of his fastball wasn't great. And as such, Atlanta being a club that, one, hits home runs very well, and two, being the fact that simply they're a Major League Baseball club and they know fastballs are coming, they're going to tee off because Thor's changeup is just not that good. But he looked pretty good today. He only allowed one hit, one walk, 3 2/3 of an innings, 4 strikeouts. That's promising. I will it maintain and hold up throughout? That's the $1 million question, because the dude does not have a good injury history, and it was definitely a bit of a flyer the Angels took on him. But they needed pitching depth, so they didn't really have a choice either. What do you think about Thor?
I mean, I'd be interested to see what he does. I think we saw this a lot with Steven Matz last year when he went to the Blue Jays, and he was a totally different pitcher. So management has a lot to do with how successful these guys are,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, Thor and Degrom. I think you know, and Matz when he was in New York, clearly were not properly worked. I don't think. I think there was a lot of BS with the way they handled DeGrom's injuries last year. So I think management has a lot to do with the success of some of these guys and pitching coaches and all of that. So clearly, the plan for the Mets was okay. Well, Matt Harvey bombed on us, so we need somebody in here, and Steve Matz was the next guy. And there's too much pressure in the New York market for him to have a subpar year and only a few of the fans like him. And it's like, well, yeah, because they actually like the guy. But management for the Mets has been a question mark for quite a few years from ownership and GM on down. So, to me, I'll be interested to see what Thor can do. And I think with a guy like Madden kind of working him and making those decisions, Madden's a pretty sharp guy when it comes to pitchers, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that certainly will help him a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're just going to have to sit back and watch and see what happens. That said, I'm still not drafting him this Thursday night in my family's fantasy baseball draft. Considering there's 4 of us in the league, no need to waste a flyer pick on Thor when there's so much good pitching I could pick at him. That's better known. So. Looking at Atlanta today, Joe, Spencer Strider came out. He's the guy that had Tommy John back in 2019 and has been working his way back up since. His final season in college was shortened by COVID at Clemson. And right now, he's a guy with a huge arm. His fastball is going to touch 98, 99. I think he's been clocked at 101 before. And Atlanta they haven't decided how they're going to use him yet, which is great. He could either they're trying to decide between long reliever, 6th starter, or even potentially a back end guy, a setup man or a closer if needed. With a fastball like that, you'd be silly not to at least think about using him in short, tight inning scenarios like that. But, he's looking really good in the minors so far. Today, he went against the Blue Jays 2 1/3 scoreless and hitless innings and a 5-4 win. And I believe that was I believe he ended up with 5 strikeouts. Let me just double check that quick here, because that was a beautiful, beautiful outing for him. And I was really happy to see it, frankly. Why can I not find the right? I hate these spring training box scores. They're so long to try and read because everybody literally plays. All right, 2 1/3. No, I'm sorry, 2 strikeouts. 5 strikeouts for the spring training so far. I misread that. My bad. But yeah, today 2 1/3, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks, no hits, no runs. When you have a guy like that who can just pound smoke, I got to tell you, I'm really excited to see him come up. I think he's probably going to start at Gwinnett to keep stretching him out more. But he's probably, I would imagine, going to be one of the first guys called up if there is an injury early on in the season, which hopefully won't happen. But, this is baseball. Injuries are going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the pressure to defend the title for Atlanta is kind of something that's going to be riding them all year. But I think any improvements they can make with pitching and bringing up serviceable guys like that, I think that'll help.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about the Cubbies? Who's the big looking guy in camp right now for them?
Wisdom has been hitting pretty good. I think he's sort of, there's a lot of leeway there, but you're hoping that he can kind of build on last year because I mean he had the most home runs of any rookie last year. That's helpful. I think the big storyline in Cubs camp right now, obviously, one of them is Suzuki from Japan. So we'll see how that turns out. No hits so far in spring training, but he's only been with the club for a week, so I don't necessarily put too much stock in that. Mike Hermosillo looked pretty good the other day. He had a little league home run in spring training.
I saw
Uh,
that.
and the throw into home went off his helmet. Like so not only did you miss the catcher, but you hit the runner.
You see, I think they thought they were playing. I think they thought they were playing the backyard wiffle ball rules where you can just peg the guy.
Well, and the thing is, he lost his helmet at like seconds, so it bounced off his head and went 90 degrees this way. So
I mean,
those kind of hustle plays are impressive for me. I think Jesse Chavez has been pitching okay so far this spring. He's 2-0.
yeah, enjoy him, by the way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. He was fun to watch when they had him, I think, last year or the year before.
Last year.
I really enjoy him. I'm really interested to see what Nick Madrigal does now that he's back and healthy. He was part of the Kimbrel deal with the White Sox, so I'm interested to see what he can do. Jonathan VR is a good addition, but there's no real numbers to report on that. The big story I think you're going to see Cub fans talk about from now until it's decided is what are you doing with Wilson Contreras? Are you going to sign the guy or are you going to trade him? And if you're going to trade him, do it now because this is ridiculous. The fact that they haven't signed this guy yet is akin to what the Braves did with Freeman. You're like, what the hell is going on here? Sign the guy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the fact that we pulled, a Kurt Warner-esque catcher off the freaking shopping, grocery store line last year more than once. But let's solidify that lineup and that position in particular because, I mean, there's very little. I mean, there's a few guys, but Wilson is one of those guys where you're like, this is easily top 3 catchers in the game right now. I think that's a pretty fair assessment.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So get it done. This is stupid. Like, what are we waiting for? Yan Gomes is not your everyday catcher. There's a guy in the minors who apparently Wilson was like, get ready because I don't know what they're doing with me. So the fact that this is such an unknown right now is the biggest story to me in Cub camp. You've got some of those prospects that they got last year coming up and making some moves and making some noise. But the big story for me, if you're a Cub fan, is Wilson Contreras. Are you going to trade him or are you going to sign him? And if you're going to sign him, let's just get it over with so we don't have this crap hanging over our heads like we did last year.
Yeah, when they re-signed David Ross, I was like, you guys signed the wrong catcher. Why aren't you signing Contreras?
I'm all for signing a long-term catcher, but David Ross is not my guy. So, I've got plenty to say about that. I think that's just stupid. I don't know that he's really the long-term manager of that club. I don't really see him having the luck that they need him to have, especially with the lineup he has. I mean, you have Nico who's doing some good stuff so far, but Nico's injury prone. I'm going to say it. He's 22. Yeah, he's injury prone. Screw it. Move on.
Hey, Joe, we got a visitor from the Midwest.
Live from
there he is.
So I can't really hear you because it's crazy loud, but we're coming to you from.
You're also cutting in and out. For everybody listening at home, Jason is trying to come in live from Vegas right now. But
just want to say, have a good show, boys. Miss you both, and I'll see y'all next week.
2 weeks.
Sounds good.
April 11th, bud. Yeah, he's out in he's out in Vegas right now at the Bowling Nationals. So from his Facebook posts, I'm going to be straight here. I don't understand bowling. I know a perfect game's 300, but considering it's 10 frames and and calculating strikes and spare, dude, I can't. This is why there are computers to do that shit. I can't fucking figure it out. But Jason is a hell of a bowler, and Dave is actually out there with him. So I hope it all goes well for them out there. Also, he was nice enough to share a picture of his little side trip as he put it out to the Grand Canyon earlier today. Freaking beautiful looking. Freaking beautiful. It's definitely on my list of places to go before I die. Oh man, as Jason is apt to do, likes to bust into the conversation randomly. Joe, since Jason hopped in randomly, I think the biggest question with Phillies camp so far, Bryson Stott, after playing absolute garbage in spring training last year, 179, a homer, 2 RBIs, a walk, and 16 strikeouts, is much improved this year. He is batting .533, 1 double, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 5 walks, and 4 strikeouts. He is the organization's number 1 prospect, and he and Didi are fighting for the shortstop job right now. That said, Didi Gregorius is not having a bad spring training at all. 313, a double, 2 homers, and 4 RBIs. And I'll admit I haven't watched the Phillies at all in spring training, but it looks like his defense has been pretty good so far. So taking that into account, Joe, my guess is Stott's going to start the year at AAA, and Didi's going to start up in the majors. But, I mean, the first hint of Didi going into a slump, I think Stott's going to be up pretty damn quick. And, there might be a little bit of surface time manipulation here, too, a la KB and the Cubs. What do you think?
Yeah, I know a thing or two about service time manipulation. But, I think they still really – I mean, they didn't really solidify that hole at third. I mean, Alec Bohm I don't think is the everyday third baseman for them. So where Stott plays is kind of, I think, a question, and it's up in the air. But, I mean, I don't – and Jason would probably know this better than I would, but, is there a chance that Stott could play third? Is there a chance that Didi could play third? I doubt it because he can't play short very well. But, I think as much as you want to kind of latch onto the guys you have, and Didi being one of them, at some point you have to go, okay, there's more downside to this than there is upside. And there's more upside to Stott than there is downside. So I think at some point, like you said, the first slump, or, if he's got, 5 fielding errors in a weekend, see ya, goodbye, have fun.
Yeah.
I think the leash has to be pretty short for them because, again, they didn't really solidify third, and Bohm might play some third, and Castellanos, I guess, can play third a little bit. But, Schwarber or Hoskins is going to be your DH on a regular basis, I would think. One of those two. Schwarber is a decent outfielder, but let's be honest, they didn't bring Schwarber in for his fielding; they brought him in for his bat. So, you're going to bring him in, and he's going to play some left field, but he's also going to primarily probably DH. Play left field when Hoskins is DHing or whatever. They really didn't solidify third base, and that to me is a big liability for them. So whether if Stott can play third, then I would bring him up right away. But that's just my feeling on it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't know. I thought Jason said they were looking at putting Stott at second base as well. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember. Apparently, though, he probably could play just about anywhere in the infield. I don't know, though, that the thing with Bohm is when he doesn't have the yips, he has a pretty decent bat. So I feel like they shouldn't just stash him, but they have too many DHs and not enough DH spots to necessarily keep him on the, to necessarily be an automatic on the opening day roster. I think he will be, but
yeah, this is the worst defensive team probably of the top contenders for the playoffs as we stand right now. But if as the saying goes, if you have enough offense, who really cares? But if you can, to make an NFL analogy, if you can be, Tyreek Hill and get in space, who the hell cares how many points your defense gives up? So I don't necessarily, you know, the defensive liabilities for the Phillies, I think, are quite a bit, but I do think you've got to get a guy like Stott up as soon as you can, whether it's at short, whether it's at second, and Gene moves to short and Didi goes to third or whatever. Bohm, like you said, Bohm can hit, but defensively, he's a huge liability. He's more of a liability than Ryan Gosling and Remember the Titans. So, this is kind of, Ryan Gosling might be good looking, but he was a liability at cornerback. So, to me, Bohm is a liability in one of the worst spots you can have a liability defensively, and that's third base.
Yeah.
So they've got to do something about third base, whether that's Stott, whether that's Castellanos, whether that's Didi, whatever you have to do, you've got to solidify third. And I don't think that Bohm is the long-term answer for them.
No, Bohm seems like he's almost destined to either move to the outfield, move to first, or be a permanent DH because his defensive numbers last year were utter garbage, and he didn't even play the full season in the majors because it got so bad. All right, let's look around at the Mets here. The big question the Mets have right now coming into camp is whether Taijuan Walker is going to be ready for opening day or not. He did have an offseason knee procedure, and they're not sure if he's going to be ready by opening day to be their number 5 starter. So I got to say, this is absolutely filthy to say this, but they're starting 5. You've got DeGrom and Scherzer at 1-2, or Scherzer DeGrom at 1A and 1B. And then your third starter is going to be Chris Bassett, which that was a ridiculous pickup for them, I must admit. Carlos Carrasco is going to be 4. And then Taijuan Walker will probably, as crazy as it is, because he was essentially their ace once DeGrom was shut down last year, he's going to be the number 5 this year. And if he can't pitch, my guess is either Tyler McGill or David Peterson would be given that opportunity, or maybe they'll run with both and do a 6-man rotation for the first month or so just to keep guys rested and stretched out, which with the fragile arms at the top of the rotation seems like it would be a prudent idea. But, as you've mentioned, the Mets ownership, leadership, and prudence have never all gone together in a sentence correctly. So we'll see about that. What do you think Taijuan Walker is going to be ready? I think he's going to be making his debut. This Saturday he'll be making his debut. Do you think he's going to be ready in time?
I don't know that I would rush it. I don't think so. But, again, how many of these guys are 100% ready on April 7th? I guarantee you it's not a lot of them. You're going to see a lot of 5-inning starts, 4-inning starts to start the season because of how quickly they rush back. So to me, that's a huge concern. I know I've brought it up before, but that's a huge concern for me, how quickly they've brought back. These guys aren't going to be ready. I think, Carrasco is going to be good for the Mets because he spent so much time hurt last year. So he's starting the year fresh. And Mets fans who are, live and breathe it and are up and down with him every day and every year, they know he's got the talent. So, I trust a lot of these guys, like the guys at the Mets Up podcast, they love that guy. They think he's good, I think. So, I think Carrasco is going to be good for them now with a full winter to recover and really build back up. Because he only pitched, I think, a few months last year. Taijuan Walker, I think, was a shell of himself in the second half. So I think moving him to 5 would probably have been a formality if you're looking at just the way he performed at the end of the year last year. Unfortunately, he kind of got thrust into an ace role, and he had some success, but he wasn't ready for that role, I don't think. Stroman was solid for the Mets last year. But you like what the Mets have done, but this is going to be the second offseason where we're going to like what the Mets have done on paper. Now, granted, you've got a proven manager and not Luis Rojas, but still, I think there's a lot to kind of be cautious about if you're a Met fan. Yeah, we've seen this before. They spend a ton of money. They bring in these guys, and I mean, we'll see what they get out of it. I do think Walker probably they're going to have to go 6 or 7 man rotation. A lot of these teams are going to start the year. So you might even see Trevor Williams pitch more for them. That was the pickup in the Cubs deal last year. So I think you're going to see some sort of mix of McGill and Williams until Walker is completely ready to go.
Right, and even with that, with the extra 2 men on the roster, you also could run a bullpen game every 6th game too, and that's not really going to hurt your arms either. So, we'll see. I want to swing around to the Orioles camp now. Now they just got pounded today by the Phillies 7-1, but they were playing a lot of their futures guys, and one guy I thought looked really, really good today was DL Hall. He's their number 5 prospect. Now, his first 2 pitches were bad misses. They were both up and in on Mickey Moniak, who's one of the Phillies prospects. And then he decided, okay, the yips are out, and just pounded 3 straight fastballs right over the plate. 98.7, 99.6, and then 100. Pretty good comeback after 2 balls off. So, once again, the Orioles, they're a couple years away, but they've got some phenomenal prospects that if they can manage to not trade them all away for crappy aging guys that suck, I know, or bring him up for just a year or 2. Oh my God, he's really good. Let's get rid of him and get more prospects. If they can manage to resist that temptation, this might be a really solid club in the next 2 to 5 years. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they really could be, but they, like you said, are they going to trade these guys or not? I don't get too caught up in what the Orioles might be a year or 2 from now because they're going to trade half these guys before then, because that's what they do. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. But anytime you can have some success in spring training, yeah, they may have gotten rocked by the Phillies today. Hey, the Cubs got rocked by the Rockies the other day, 15-1. So, hey, it happens. Spring training, glad these don't count.
Right. That's exactly it. And then we're going to, before we look at our updated predictions, let's swing over to the West since Jason and Dave are hanging out in Las Vegas right now. It looks like Julio Rodriguez, one of the Mariners' top prospect. He had a little bit of a rough patch. He had back-to-back 0-for-3 games, but then he came up with a 2-for-2 showing against the Rangers. He was able to turn on a 97-mile-an-hour fastball and hit a hanging curveball later that he smacked down for an RBI double. So, it looks like they had him starting in center field and batting 7th. So he is definitely still in the running for an opening day spot. I remember Dave was very high on him when we had him on for the AOS preview. So, and Matt Brash, George Kirby, they're both looking really good. So, the Mariners, now with the Astros looking more depleted than they were before, I'm liking this Mariners team more and more ever since we had that episode with Dave on. And now I still think Dave's top peak 100+ wins are still a little bit much. Mid 90s to even potentially like 97 wins at this point wouldn't surprise me with the high level of their top prospects are really, really high level talented guys. And they're getting real close to major league ready. Plus, the acquisitions they've already made. That's a scary looking team out West.
Yeah. And what I think, the Astros, you touched on it. They're depleted. They've lost some guys. They didn't bring some guys back that were up for new contracts. The A's kind of, and we'll get to this when we get to the NL Central, but the A's kind of just were like, sure, we'll give you Matt Olson and, one other guy, and we'll get some prospects back. I mean, I don't understand this logic for folks like teams like Oakland, where it's like, Yeah. Okay. We've got probably, one of the higher ranking first basemen, and we're just gonna trade him. And it's like, this is stupid. So I don't really like a lot of the moves that the rest of that division has made so far. I don't think they've gotten better. Um, so I think, again, the Mariners have gotten better. They look a lot better. There's a lot of momentum going into the offseason they had before the lockout. So, I'm interested to see if they can, and again, I don't know, 100 wins, but they're having some success. And I still think that they're going to be, 1-2 in that division, two at the lowest. Because I just don't like what everybody else has done so far.
Yeah, the AL West is perplexing, honestly, to look at what they do. We'll use that as the segue into our next section. And what we're going to do, Joe, I'm gonna list off the teams in order of how they did last season, and we're gonna just take our kind of a stab in the dark here, where we think how we think the five teams are going to be this year. So last year in the AL West, Houston was your AL champions before falling to Atlanta in 6 games in the World Series. Second place was Seattle, just short of a wild card bid, just short of that ultimate chaos scenario we were begging for. Oakland was third at 8 with 86 wins. LA had 77, and Texas had 60. So, where are you putting these teams 1 through 5, Joe?
For me, the A's are either 4 or 5. I think. I think the Rangers are going to be probably 4th or 3rd. I think Seattle and Houston 1, 2. The Angels, and who was the last team? I forget. I'm sorry.
You mentioned it's Rangers, Athletics, Angels, Mariners, Astros.
Yeah, I think Mariners, Astros 1, 2. I think the Rangers could be 3rd. Oakland probably 4 or 5, maybe. I feel like Oakland gave up way too much.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna keep Oakland 4 because I don't think the Rangers did anything to improve on a 60-win season last year. They're playing the long-term prospects game. But Oakland and
Simeon and Seager, which I think will help a little. But those two will be 4 or 5, I think, between Oakland and Texas. I just don't know which one.
Yeah, I could see either of them being in the basement. 3, I have the Angels in at 3. I think I'm going to officially say the Astros will be 2 and the Mariners will be 1.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That's about kind of where I would go with it.
All right.
I think the Angels did just enough to get better.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on to the AL Central. Last year, you had the division champion was the White Sox before falling to the Astros in the NLDS. Second was the Guardians, which still sounds weird to say coming off my tongue. You have the Tigers third at 77 wins, the Royals fourth at 74, the Twins at 73. I would like a friendly reminder that none of these teams, other than the White Sox, ended over 500 last year. Now, Joe, I'll go first this time. I think this is still the White Sox division to lose. I don't think anybody has done nearly enough to even have a snowball shot in hell of making a fair competition. But maybe the White Sox won't feel the need to shut it down in mid-July this year like they did last year. Number 2, I'm going to put the Tigers in at number 2. I like the moves they made in the offseason. They've definitely added a lot of talent across the board. And I think they underperformed a bit last year as well based on what they had. So I'm going to put the Tigers 2. I'm between the Guardians and the Twins at 3. The Twins, I can't figure out what the hell they're doing. They bring in guys, they ship them right out. They bring in aged, inefficient catchers from the Yankees, but then they send Donaldson to the Yankees, and then they bring in Seager. Like, none of this makes any sense. But clearly, Seager must have seen something with the Twins.
Correa.
I'm sorry, Correa, not Seager. My bad. Thank you. So clearly, Correa must have seen something at least coming up to make him believe that a shortstop is shortstop to play shortstop for the Twins is going to be worth it. So, I'm going to say Twins 3, Guardians 4, Royals 5. I don't see the Royals getting out of the basement. They didn't really do hardly anything. What do you think about the AL Central?
Yeah, I agree with the way you have them. I think, the Twins. The thing with that Correa deal is basically there's an opt out after both the first and second year. So basically, if the Twins don't get any better, they can trade them, which is probably the only good deal part of this. And Boris got his client a good deal. I can't argue with Boris's job on this one. As we'll talk about probably some more as we move along here with some other of Boris's clients. But I think, I think the Tigers underperformed. I think, hey, if they improved on anything, they're going to have more strikeouts as a team this year. So hey, we'll see what happens.
I was waiting for that.
I think probably either Tigers or, like you said, Tigers, Guardians 2-3. And it does still feel weird to say. And probably 4-5 Twins and Royals. The Royals really haven't done anything to improve on their position. I think what's going to be interesting with the White Sox is just how quickly this is over, because they're going to have Eloy and I forget the other guy's name, Luis. They're going to have them the entire year.
Giolotto. Are you thinking of Giolotto?
No.
Giolotto.
It's they're going to have Eloy Jimenez, and I'm trying to think of the other guy's name. The whole season as opposed to being out the whole year or most of the year, like they were last year. So I think that's going to be helpful to them.
It was Eloy Jimenez.
Yeah, Eloy Jimenez, and let me find the other guy because it's going to bother me. Luis Robert, that's the other one.
Yeah.
Those two guys, you're going to have them all year, hopefully, or at least the beginning of the year. So how quickly is this division over? That's something to be seen there. Does Mercedes recover from, La Russa shooting him in the foot, basically, last year? But there's a lot to like about this White Sox lineup, and their pitching got better. So there's a lot, like you said, the Royals didn't do much, and the White Sox added just enough.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the AL East. Last year, the division was won by the Tampa Bay Rays before they got knocked out by the number 2 team, the first wild card, Boston Red Sox, in the ALDS. The number 3 team was the New York Yankees, who had to face the Red Sox in Boston in a 1-game winner-take-all. And let's face it, we all knew the Yankees weren't going to win that. Number 4 was Toronto with 91 wins. And then way down in the basement below that was the 52-win Baltimore Orioles. I know it's safe to say that we're both going to put the Orioles at 5. But, Joe, how do you put the rest of the division?
For the Yankees, Donaldson doesn't improve everything else. They don't have a shortstop that they can really depend on. And I know they got one in the Twins deal, but I don't know that I necessarily think that's an everyday solution for them. I don't really know who's playing shortstop for them. Whoever they have at catcher is going to be better defensively than Sanchez was, but offensively, they're not. So they really haven't done enough to make me go, okay, you've made the improvements I think you need to make, and you're going to be much better than the Blue Jays, who are loaded. It's Blue Jays. To me, it's Orioles 5, Yankees 4, and I would say Tampa 3. And it's going to come down between the Blue Jays and the Red Sox this year in that division.
I think it's safe to say that both of the East divisions this year are going to end up being a bloodbath. Because there are some really, really good teams at the top halves of both of those divisions. The shortstop that they got from the Twins, who got him a day earlier from the Rangers, was Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I think he is going to. I think he will stick as the starting shortstop for them. Obviously we'll see. Everything is different when you move to the New York market, especially from the Rangers and the Twins to New York. That's a big change. I think I'm going to put the AL East at Baltimore 5. I think this is so hard because I could literally see these games coming down to coin tosses, every single one of them. I think I will go with Yankees 4. I think I'm going to go with Red Sox 3, Rays 2, Blue Jays 1. Although, to be completely honest with you, if any of those top 4 are flip-flopped in any manner, I will not be surprised one bit, because I think that's going to be the hardest division to predict because those top 4 teams are just very, very, very good top to bottom. So.
Now, here's my question for you. So if we look at this with the new playoff format, what are the chances that all 3 wild cards come out of the AL East?
I'm gonna say,
considering we had three in contention up until the last week last year.
Yeah.
Now that there's an extra team in there,
I'm not going to put it too high because I think the Astros or whoever doesn't win the West is going to take one of them. I think it's going to be a case like the Dodgers and the Giants last year. So I'm going to say probably 25-30% chance that all of the teams in the that all 3 wild cards come out of the East. Yeah. Certainly not out of the realm of possibilities, though. Wouldn't that be interesting? All right, let's go to the better league now. Get back over to the National League where things made more sense before we had a freaking universal DH. Starting in the NL West, we had the champions were the San Francisco Giants, who lost in the NLDS to the 106-win wild card LA Dodgers. In third place was the bitterly disappointing San Diego Padres at 79 wins. The Rockies were at 74 wins, and way down the dumpster was the perpetual dumpster fire known as the Arizona Diamondbacks at 52 wins. And Jesus, that was terrible. So again, Joe, I think it's safe to say that we're both going to keep Arizona down in the basement where they belong, unless they're playing the Phillies, because the Phillies can't help but play down to competition, as they proved last year. So, Joe, outside of the Diamondbacks at 5, actually, I'll go first so you can do the Central. Sorry. So, at 4, I am going to have at 4th place. I think I'm going to drop the Padres down to 4. I'm just not sold on the Padres. I'm not sold on Fernando Tatis being able to stay healthy no matter what the Padres do. I don't really like the Rockies that much more than the Padres, but KB is a good if overpaid addition, and they've got some talent coming up. So I think I'll take the Rockies maybe game or 2 ahead of the Padres. And then I think I'm going to go Giants 2, Dodgers 1, but I think it's going to be a tight race. I don't know if it'll be 107 versus 106 wins like last year, but I think it will be a tight race for the top. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to keep the Diamondbacks where they are. I don't know. I mean, I think besides Bryant, I forget the Rockies picked somebody else up. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head right now. Who wasn't terrible. But I think between them and the Padres, it's going to be a toss-up which one's 4th. I'm inclined to agree with you that, we might have, instead of the Madden curse, we might have the show curse, because Tatis was on the show and he's been terrible ever since, or injury prone at least. Let's put it that way. Maybe not terrible, but you get what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Injury prone, and to have a star who's injury prone, that doesn't lead to a lot of good things. Especially with starting the season off the way he's starting the season off on the DL, I think, for quite some time. And he was never the same ball player when he came back last year from being on the DL. So, it doesn't really matter where you put him. I mean, the DH will help where he can just hit for a while, but they don't have, talent at the shortstop or outfield position to replace him as a fielder. So I would agree with you. Fourth for the Padres, third for the Rockies. Why the hell the Rockies all of a sudden decided to spend money? I have no idea. But hey,
I think I know why. They got Randall Grichuk and cash from the Blue Jays, so they thought that gave them the right to splash a little bit of it back out.
That's who I was trying to think of, and I think they got him just a few days ago.
Yeah, that was a recent move.
So they're making some moves there. They picked up Bryant. How much you're going to get out of Bryant? I mean, the fact that the ball is going to fly out a little bit more certainly helps KB for sure. So him, Grichuk, and they have a couple of good starters there in Colorado. So I could see them being third. I don't know about this one too. I think this could go either way. Mm-hmm. I do think probably the Dodgers have more firepower as far as an offense goes. I'm a big fan of the pitchers that the Giants have. And the Dodgers have great pitching too. So this could really be a toss up. I just for the sake of having a talking point, you pick the Dodgers 1. I'll pick the Giants 1 and the Dodgers 2.
And like I said about the AL East, they could be flip-flopped later, and I will not even be slightly surprised that it's going to be razor thin between the two of them this year.
Yeah, I don't think we're in trouble of having 3 teams from the NL West in the playoffs like we talked about at the beginning of last year. Mm-hmm. So one of those teams is going to be the division winner. The other one's going to be in the wild card, and playing a 3-game series that they shouldn't have to play. So whether they get to that 107 or not, who knows? But
then win your fucking division. That's what it comes down
to. I know. But
and I know everybody's gonna dogpile on me. You're only saying that because the Braves got the advantage over the Dodgers. No, if the roles were reversed and Atlanta was the number 2 team, and the Dodgers won their division just barely, like Atlanta did, then yeah, absolutely, that's how the rule is worded. And yeah, you're going to occasionally have a wild card team that has a better record than the division winner. But that doesn't matter. The division by adding another wild card team, we're already watering down an already watered down regular season even more. We can't, but let's not lose that. So at least the regular season means something.
Yeah, and last year was an abnormality. You're not going to have 2 teams that have 105 wins, competing for a division into the final weekend. You're just not going to have that.
Yeah.
That's an every 10-year type thing or every 15-year type thing.
Yeah, generational.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Central there, Joe. Last year you had the champions were the as a Chicago North, also known as the Milwaukee Brewers, with 95 wins. They were knocked out by the World Series champion Atlanta Braves in the NLDS. The Cardinals rode one of the most amazing win streaks anybody has ever seen at the end of the year to slip into that second wild card spot with 90 wins. The Reds, who I should note, as they're fire sailing their entire team, had the third wild card been a thing last year, the Reds would have made the playoffs last year as the third wild card team with 83 wins. Number 4 was the Cubbies at 71 and 69, and then the Pirates were stuck down in the flaming dumpster of doom where they normally are with 61 wins. So, Joe, I'm not going to lock in the Pirates this year because I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the bottom, because I feel like the Pirates and the Reds are actively competing for who's going to be the worst team in the division. What do you say about your division, man?
Well, I mean, after years of having 2 or 3 teams make the playoffs, they were bound for a bad. This is going to be a weird year. I think last year, the Cardinals had that magical run to get into the playoffs, got eliminated, and then fired their manager. So, you know, there's a lot to love about that Cardinals lineup, as we talked about before. There's less to like about Milwaukee. I think they're a year older and they're a year less talented. You know, the Reds, in the words of I'm watching this Reds fire sale, and in the words of Borat, very nice to watch because to me, like you said, they're kind of fighting for that bottom, and when you couple with the Reds, you've got Jed Hoyer going, oh, we might want Wade Miley, but we're not willing to trade for him, and then they pick him up on waivers. You know, best offseason move by far of an active player, uh, or at least one of them. You know, I think the Reds were a couple of games away from the playoff. And instead of saying, okay, let's add one or two pieces, they just said, screw it, we're just going to blow this up. So to me, you get what you deserve if you're a Reds fan at this point. Same thing with Pirates fans. I mean, I don't understand the Pirates getting rid of Stallings at catcher. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. You know, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to put the Reds in fifth, the Pirates in fourth. The Cubs are going to be in third because the Reds are stupid. You know, much too, and it's going to be in spite of David Ross, not because of David Ross. Let's just get that on the record now.
Yes.
You know, I think it's the Brewers 2 and the Cardinals 1. I think the Cardinals just have so much talent there. You've got, you know, Goldie at first, and I think Pujols will probably be DH pretty much, you know, 98% of the time. You know, they've got a lot to like about that lineup. One of the Wong kids, one of the Wong guys, I think, is there at short or second. I forget. You know, Harrison Bader in center is so fun to watch. They have the makings of a really nice club, and they've got, you know, the sentimental fans are going to be on their side because you've got Wainwright, Molina, and Pujols riding out into the sunset together one last time. So, you know, there's a lot to like about what the Cardinals have. You know, Gallegos, their closer, was many times last year at the end of the year when I started using it, the adulting reliever of the week. So I think the Cardinals, there's a lot to like there. As much as I hate to say it, I think they walk away with this division. I think if the Cubs get what they need offensively to go with Stroman and Miley, you know, and Hendricks, and they have a couple of good weekends at Wrigley North, in Miller Park. They could sneak into 2, but again, it would be in spite of David Ross, not because of it. Because David Ross is the manager, I'm not gonna put the Cubs in second. There's just no way.
Yeah, that would have been the biggest homer pick in the history of the show. Let's be realistic here.
I'm not a homer. I'm a realist. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
Right.
You know
And that's why
by now.
I would never expect that out of you. I would expect it out of Jason way before I would expect it out of you or me or Jim when we bring him on as a guest. Because let's face it, Jim is the king of homer picks. If you've ever listened to Huddle Up, Cowboys this, Cowboys that, Cowboys this, Cowboys that, and then occasionally he's like, all right, shit, I can't go with the Cowboys this week. They're on a bye.
Yeah,
so
I think you know, the Cubs, there's just too much unanswered at this point. You know, the fact that they didn't land a guy like Correa or Castellanos to shore up the outfield. So, you know, I have to rely on Hayward and, you know, whoever ends up in left and center, you know, between Alcantara is one of them, and, you know, stuff like that. They've got some pieces that could be good. You got to see where PCA ends up. You know, if he ends up with the big league club, that could be fun to watch again, you know, as Jason's talked about. But, yeah, there's no way in hell I would see them landing in second unless somebody else was the manager.
Or a lot of injuries from above.
And the only reason they're going to be in third is because the Pirates are the Pirates and the Reds are stupid. That's. I mean, if you're gonna get anything out of the NL Central from me, it's the Reds are stupid.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I was trying to find the guy's name on Twitter. Some jackass was getting into it with me last year. It might have even been during the All-Star game or around there, or it was in the Braves series, the Reds right after the All-Star break, where they came out and took the Reds down, despite Joey Votto going Hulk smash on everything that came close to him. And basically the dude was shooting his mouth off because the Reds have more World Series titles than the Braves, ignoring the fact that, well, the Braves at that point had a very, very long World Series drought. The Reds had a far longer one. To this asshole,
this Reds fan was sounds like Cowboys fans for the last 20 years.
Yeah, but at least, if not longer. To this asshole, I say unto you, well, let's see here. We won last year. You're selling your team off for scraps. So I'm going to say fuck you, and I'm going to put the Reds at 5, and I hope they stay down there perpetually because screw the Reds. So I'm going to go Reds 5, Pirates 4. The Cubs are going to default into third place because there's nowhere else for them to go. Because the Reds and the Brewers, the Redbirds and the Brewers are both still pretty far ahead of the Cubs, I think. I'm going to keep Milwaukee on top for one more year because during the regular season, dominating starting pitching will carry you, and that will carry you into the playoffs. If maybe this year they finally get smart and get a bat at some point, the Brewers could actually be a little bit dangerous. And, maybe Christian Yelich will finally not be a Chris Davis on the team and, play to his contract instead of playing far, far, far below it. So we'll have to see. All right, now let's head on to the division of the defending World Series champion Atlanta Braves, who won with a mere 88 wins last year, despite being under 500 for a huge portion of the season, as well as in third place for a very, very insultingly long period of time. Second place last year was the Phillies at 82 wins. That was their first 500-plus season in, I believe, 12 or 13 years. The Mets, despite leading for most of the season, ended up under 500, and after getting caught on camera practicing a World Series celebration during spring training last year, ended up with 77 wins. The Miami Marlins were fourth at 67 wins, and down in the basement were the Washington Nationals at 65 wins. So, Joe, here's the thing. 4 and 5 is still going to be the Nationals and the Marlins. I think because of Steven Strasburg's health unknowns, I'm not willing to lift Washington out of the basement ahead of Miami yet. I think both teams will be better this year than they were last year, but I'm not ready to lift Washington up to 4 yet. Miami will be Miami. They're going to be better than last year, probably low 70s for wins. They did add some nice pieces. I don't think they added enough on to be able to get to crack the top 3. But they should be improved this year. Now, for the top 3, I am going to say the defending World Series champions will take the division title once again. They have phenomenal top 3 starting pitching with Morton and Fried and Anderson. Like I said, they've got a lot of guys in spring training this year who are looking quite good. I'm very, very happy to say. And I'm trying to see if Bowman listed his opening day. No, Bowman didn't list his. I think he's putting it out tomorrow. Who he's projecting to be the opening day starting rotation, but we're not there. I was really hoping you'd have it up by today, but I didn't see it. The biggest question the Braves have going into the start of the season is honestly, it's going to be, who is your opening day starter? Is it Max Fried or is it Charlie Morton? And the answer I have to say is yes. Personally, I would edge towards Fried because of his tenure, because he won the World Series for the Braves last year in the last game. But hey, if Morton's healthy, I have no issue with Morton starting too. So I mean, Morton, Fried, Anderson, you got 1, 2, 3, and then Kyle Wright's a good push for 4. Tucker Davidson. Atlanta's stocked with guys. So pitching wise, I'm not worried about Atlanta. At first base, Matt Olson, honestly, as much as it pains me to say this because I love Freddie, Matt Olson is an improvement. He is as good as Freddie, maybe not average wise, but he's got better power. And with the short porch in right field, he is going to be sending balls flying into the chop house all season. I would not be surprised to see Olson go 35, 40 homers this year. Because let's face it, he jacked 35, 40 dingers last year playing in Oakland, which is pretty damn far from a hitter's park. So that he could do that there, put him in a pitching friendly park, I think he's going to make huge waves this year. And the fact that they wrapped him up for the next 8 seasons, I feel very good about that as well. Now, the Phillies and the Mets, both teams made the Phillies, it took them a while to really get in on the free agent market, but both teams did make some good improvements. I think, and it really does pain me to say this because I think the Mets are going to Met, but I think the Mets will probably be second and take a wild card. But I don't think the Phillies will be far behind, and I think it's very possible that the NL East could have 2 of the wild card teams this year, depending on how things shake out at the end of the year. I do not think that the Marlins or Nationals, even if you combine their 2 teams, could make a playoff-worthy team to chase a 3rd wild card. But I certainly think that Braves, Mets, and Phillies, no matter what order they're in, I do think all 3 teams will be shooting for division and wild card spots out of the East. What do you think? Unmute yourself first, dude.
I don't think, like you said, the Nationals have done anything to really improve off of their post-trade deadline game where they're like, who are you? I don't know who you are. It was funny because I think the Cubs and the Nationals played that first series after the trade deadline, and it was like Wilson and Soto were the only guys left on either team that were of any notoriety. So I think they haven't done enough. Like you said, Strasburg is too hurt to really know what they're going to get from him. I think injury prone and issues like that. I'm not impressed with the Marlins, but the Marlins have been Philly killers. So, as long as Alcantara is pitching for the Marlins, who knows what can happen with you guys. But yeah, I'd still say 5-4. Nationals and Marlins. I think this is going to be another year where the NL Central gets one team in the playoff, and it's going to be their division champion. I think the wild card's going to come from the NL West one team, again, the Dodger Giant loser, and the other 2 teams in the NL East. To me, that's the way I see the playoffs shaking out at this point. Again, unless massive injuries happen like we expect they will, and we can reevaluate when those do, but across the league, not just the NL East. But I think I'm going to say the Mets are going to Met, so 3rd for the Mets maybe. This is another one of those years where we're like, well, we really love what the Mets have spent, but where's their return on that? Because they didn't get it last year. Alonso wasn't nearly as good of a hitter all year as he used to be. And part of that, again, is attributed to Rojas because we talked about how many times he had a different lineup all year long. I think in 162 games, they probably had 140 lineups. Something stupid like that. I don't know if that's an exact number, but I know at one point in the year we were like, they've played 120 games and they've had 100 different lineups. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. That Buck Showalter, I think, could make some changes there. But so I think, to me, I'm thinking Mets 3 just because the Mets are going to Met and DeGrom is like glass at this point. And Scherzer, we're just not really sure what Scherzer they're going to get. Of the 2, I've been more impressed with DeGrom in spring training just based on the numbers. But DeGrom's not pitching 60 pitches yet. So, how much does that matter? And how much does the fact that your first spring training start with Scherzer was 70 pitches, how much does that matter? To me, that matters quite a bit. So the fact that they haven't managed those guys properly right away is a bit of a concern. The fact that you have Walker on the DL to start the year, possibly, is a concern if you're a Met fan. And again, offensively, they just weren't the same team that they were in the first half of the year last year. Alonso hit the home run derby, and then after that, he couldn't really regularly produce. So I would go Mets 3, Phillies probably 2, Braves 1. As much as it pains me to say it, but I do think if the Phillies can get what they expect to get offensively out of Castellanos and Harper and Schwarber and Hoskins fully healthy, this is going to be a 2-team race at the end again. I think, one of those top 3 is going to be separated, probably the Mets, and be solidly in third, and they're going to fight to the last week again, like they did last year. So it could go either way, but I'm going to say 2-1, Phillies and Braves respectively. The big question mark for Atlanta is not necessarily what they do post Freddie, because they've got the production to match it. In my opinion, in the moves they've made, they've got the production to match Freddie. And they've got Acuna basically kind of being the guy in the clubhouse at this point, which, love him or hate him, he's definitely got some of that charisma and that clubhouse guy leadership, I think. We'll see how that materializes and just how much and how early he starts playing. I think that has a lot to do with it too. So, yeah, I'm going to go Braves 1, Philly 2, Mets 3, and then Marlins and Nationals. I'm going to agree with you on that one.
All right. Hey, I would be very happy to see it turn out that way. Let's be realistic here. And one other reason I think we're both probably going to want to keep the Nationals down at 5. They're going to be without both Steven Strasburg and Joe Ross to start the year. I mean, being down 2 guys, Patrick Corbin, I believe, is their ace right now. Patrick Corbin hasn't been an ace since he pitched with the Diamondbacks years ago.
If Patrick Corbin is your ace, you're in trouble. I'm sorry. Yeah. This is ridiculous. Strasburg, other than a couple of years and when they won the World Series, how much have the Nationals really gotten out of him?
I mean, hey, they got a World Series title out of him, so
Right. I mean, they did get that, but I just don't think that they got nearly what they expected to get out of a guy like that.
Well, I mean, keep in mind too, he's 33 now. He's pitched a lot. His highest number of innings pitched was back in 2014 when he pitched 215 innings in that season, and then in 19 he pitched 209 innings. I mean, he averages a little over 200 per 162 game season. So, will they get anything out of him at all? That's going to be the big question. And even a little bit of Steven Strasburg is better than what you're going to see out of a lot of guys. So I almost wonder at this point, Joe, are the Nationals better off moving him into the bullpen and just using him as like a setup man closer kind of thing? Would that be less wear and tear in his arm, or do you think the consecutive days would get, and that's a huge mindset change for a guy who's always been a starter too. I understand that.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know that he would move to the bullpen, but I wouldn't be surprised if they started using him in those bullpen style games where, he pitches 4 and then they move on to the next guy or whatever it is. I could see them doing that probably before they move him to the bullpen. Like you said, he's a starter. He's been a starter his entire life. To move him to the bullpen at this point in his career, that would extend his career a bit, but you're also talking like we've talked about with baseball as compared to some other sports. Baseball is a mental game. It's a lot of mental, getting out of your head and staying focused and all those things. And I think, there's something to be said for routines. I think, we talked about it with the extra, with the runner, the ghost runner in extra innings. Mariano Rivera, if they had the ghost runner when he was pitching, would have been a totally different pitcher. There's no way you have the same success when you start an inning with a guy on second. There's not. So I think the mental aspect is something to consider and think about. With the guy like Strasburg and whether they would do that. I think they're more likely to make him sort of the bullpen game pitcher than they are to move him to the bullpen.
Yep, I agree with you on that one. All right, so looking ahead, opening day, guys, is on April 7th. We got a good slate of games to open the season. Reds at Atlanta, Red Sox at Yankees, Brewers at Cubs, Mets at Nationals, Guardians at Royals, Mariners at Twins, Pirates at Cardinals, Astros at Angels, and Padres at Diamondbacks. It's going to be a fun start to the year. I am incredibly excited to see all of this happen. Joe, do you have anything else you want to bring up for tonight?
No, I mean, I think we're excited to see what happens with the start of the year. I think there's a couple of things to keep an eye on. In the injury front, like I've been talking about, is I think something to keep an eye on here in spring training and as the season starts. And there's nothing I love more than playing the Brewers in Chicago in April when there's going to be snow on the ground, probably. So I don't know why college baseball has gotten this right for so many stinking years. Play the first month of the season in frickin' Florida.
Yeah.
Or in the South, because this is stupid. We're gonna have snow on the ground in Chicago, in Cleveland, in Detroit, in Minnesota. Like, for the love of God, play the Houston Astros and the Texas Rangers for a month if you're in the AL West. Like, this is stupid.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say there was one good if there's one good thing that came out of the lockout and pushing back opening day, Atlanta gets to start the season at home, which I thought that was always a guarantee that the team that won the World Series last year gets to start at home, because then you have your championship banner unveiling and the rings and all that. Like, I'm sorry, the fact that
really should be. I mean, yeah. when we look at the NFL always has the Super Bowl champion open the season at home.
Right. And they will flex the schedule around however they need to make that happen.
And that's the way it should be. And it's its own standalone game too, which is something I don't think MLB will do. But the NFL has its own standalone game. The Thursday night of the opening week, it's the Super Bowl champion against some team who either A, will have a good game, or B, doesn't belong on the same field. One of the two.
Yeah.
Right. I think baseball and these other sports need to do the same thing, where you have, the champion of your sport opens the season in a standalone game at home, where there's nobody else. And if baseball does it, maybe you do it on a Sunday. If opening day is on Monday, you do a Sunday night game with, the Braves and the Phillies, or the Braves and the Mets, or whoever, and the Braves get their standalone home game in prime time when nobody else is on. And I think you should do that every year. I think that it doesn't make sense to kind of bury the banner and the ring, ceremonies to another game on the schedule. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's the game that should be celebrated and broadcasted the most over as much national airway as they can. And the Braves, that game against the Reds is in prime time. It's a 7:20 start. I don't know if they've announced which network will be carrying it yet. That may still be up in the air. It's a little too soon to say. But
the other thing I would say for baseball fans is something to close is if you're looking for someone fun to follow on Twitter besides us, Rob Friedman and Pitching Ninja is amazing to watch, because he's got all these videos of pitchers who throw these pitches and you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah. And he'll dig out
with the lockout. They've done a lot of fun stuff with college pitchers. So follow those guys, check those guys out for fun videos of pitchers making hitters look stupid, or as I would like to call it, pitchers making hitters look like Javi Baez.
Yeah, and one thing I like about him too, he'll pull out some vault footage. You could see like some vintage Greg Maddux cutting a two-seamer literally like 8, 9, 10 inches laterally, and it's no wonder the guy struck out so many people, even though his fastball, let's face it, left a lot to be desired.
They were so bored during the lockout that they did a trail of Max Scherzer dropping his phone. in spring
Yep.
training. Like these guys are fun to follow on Twitter. They're fun to look at the videos they share. It's really neat. So follow Rob Friedman and Pitching Ninja.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that was a fun episode. Looking forward, guys. We've got coming up. We'll be off next week, and then we're going to be back on April 11th. That will be the Monday after opening weekend, and we will recap the entirety of the opening weekend, and we're going to have some fun predictions thrown in there. We're gonna take some pretty deep, off the wall, crazy, what do we think could happen shots in the dark. So we're going to be, you'll see that in a couple weeks on the 11th. And that's also when we're going to be starting our weekly podcast again as the regular season is back up. So we will be back on 8:15, 8:30, probably 8:15, but we might have a couple of nights that are 8:30 weekly on Monday night for our podcast. All right, so guys, you can find our audio recordings on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Amazon Music, and Spreaker. You can see us live on our YouTube channel, Facebook Live, and on Twitter Live. You can find our merchandise at redbubble.com/people/DDAB-podcast. Follow us on the Facebook page, facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer, on the Twitter page at DDAB_podcast. You can find me on Twitter at PyroLord314. Joe is at JoltonJoe35. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast, LLC, and we are sponsored by the amazing Whiskey and Blade Barbershop in Lidditz. Stop on in anytime, have a nice haircut, have some whiskey while you're there, and a nice bonus. Johnny's a Yankees fan and Chad's a Red Sox fan, so there's always something entertaining that they'll be talking about in there. Guys, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a good night, and we'll see you after opening day.